Hi everyone, welcome to our first harmonic dictation lesson. This week we're going to keep it simple and we're going to keep it to tonic expansion. But first I wanted to do a quick review of figured bass. By the way, there is a more detailed video on figured bass link below from Seth Monahan, so feel free to check that out if you need some extra review. So let's see, on the screen, we have our root position triads are really a fifth and a third. So our figured bass is technically 5/3 for a root position. Okay, so a third above and a fifth above makes our one chord, but we just write that as one. There's no numbers needed. The first inversion triad, which is where the chordal third is on the bottom. So here we have E. We get a 6, which is the one that we write, and then there's a third above. So that kind of goes in parentheses. There you go. And then the 6/4 is where the chordal fifth is in the bottom. And there we have a 6th above and a 4th above. Remember that the 6/4 chord, or the second inversion triad, is incredibly unstable. And so it is typically not analyzed in isolation. So it's either a passing 6/4 or a cadential 6/4 or a pedal 6/4, some kind of other type of 6/4. Now, the breakdown that is helpful in written theory. For aural theory, due to the limitations of Auralia and the software and taking harmonic dictations, we're going to fudge that a little bit. And so this week we are going to have 5/6/4s, which are second inversion, actual 5 chords that are not cadential 6/4. So they're going to look like passing 6/4s and they're going to sound like passing 6/4s, but we're just going to notate them as 5/6/4, and you'll see that when we get to it. Okay, so then 7th chords, which we're not going to get to until next week, but I thought I would throw it in here. Root position is 7. First inversion, or the chordal third on the bottom, is 6/5. And then 4/3 is second inversion. And then third inversion is 4/2. And that's about all you need to know. If you have trouble remembering it, just count down 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So just, you can write that out at the top of your paper if you need help remembering it until you really have it down. Okay, so let's do a quick lesson on harmonic dictation. So the first thing that we're going to start out with is creating a structure for you. I'm all about teaching this from the standpoint of structure and function, because harmonic progressions are incredibly predictable. So classical music is it's so familiar and sometimes so easy to listen to it because it's all built on a familiar framework, and anything that is outside of that framework is a variation of the framework. Okay, so harmonic progression in classical music will establish the key, oftentimes through tonic expansion. And then you're going to have your dominant preparation, and then you're going to have your cadence. Okay, so those are 3 steps. That's your predictable framework that we're going to build everything around. And then if you have a more complicated progression, someone's expanding or varying part of this structure. Okay, so that is what creates our more complicated progression. So we'll look at that more really when we get into chromatic harmony after the midterm. Okay, so the third thing to know is that if you know this framework, you're going to limit your options. Okay, if you know that the progression is always going to begin with establishing the key, you know that 1, 2, 4, 3 is not a likely chord progression. It's actually not going to happen. So you want to get used to and get comfortable with the things that you know and the things that you can predict, because that is going to narrow down your options, and you're not going to be grasping for chords out of thin air and just thinking all over the place like, oh goodness, I have 7 chords to choose from in 5 different inversions. And No, you've got 3 chords to choose from and 2 different inversions, and that's it. Okay, so we're going to narrow down our options. We're going to get comfortable with that, and then we're going to expand out. Okay, so here we have an example of a very basic all root position chord harmonic progression. So we start out with establishing the tonic with a 1, 5, 1. There's your tonic expansion. And then the 2 chord is our predominant, our 5 is our dominant, and our 1 is a tonic. Okay, so what we are going to do this week is zoom in on the tonic expansion. The point of tonic expansion is to establish the tonic. It tells the listener, here's where you are, and it literally takes the tonic chord and expands it. So 1, sort of center around it. All right. And it gets it firmly set in our ear. And how we do that is going back and forth between the tonic chord, the 1 chord, and the dominant or the leading tone chord. The 7 diminished 6 is the leading tone chord. So the 1 can be in root position. It's most often going to be, this progression is going to start on 1 chord in root position, and then you can have a 1-6, a 5, a 5-6, or a 5-6-4, which we'll hear as a passing 6-4. We're going to wait until next week to get into the 5-7s. Okay, so given that information, pause the video and write out the 1 and the 1-6, and then the 3 versions of the 5 chord, the 5, the 5-6, and 5-6-4, and think about what solfege syllables you would expect to hear in the bass. Okay, pause the video and then come back. Okay, so we know that the solfege for the 1 chord is do, mi, and sol. In the bass, we're only going to have do and mi. Those are our only options. And for the 5 chord, if it's in root position, we have sol. First inversion, we're going to have ti. Second inversion, we're going to have re. Okay, and then the 7 diminished 6 is going to give us re in the bass. So here we have the outline. By the way, you do have a handout that is the solfege options. So one thing you're going to want to do for this week is take that handout and make flashcards out of it. So you want to have 7 flashcards. You're not going to use all of them this week. You're going to have 1 for do, 1 for re, 1 for mi / me, fa, and sol. Then lay or la, or te or ti. You can just have ti really right now. So the do flashcard is just on the other side of it. For this week, you're only going to have the 1 chord. That's your only option. For re, you could have the 7 diminished 6, or you could have the 5-6-4. For mi or me, you're going to only have the 1-6 or the minor 1-6. For fa, we don't have anything for fa yet. Sol, you have the 5 chord. And then ti, you have the 5-6. Okay, those are your only options. So start building your flashcard deck. And then as we add more options, you're going to add more things to the back of that. Okay, so just get those memorized this week and you'll be in really good shape. So here are a couple examples of tonic expansion with some inversions. So the 1 chord, get this here, okay? So the 1 chord is going to be, the major. Here we have T in the bass, up to the 1, to a root position 5. You hear that leap? Do, okay? And then in minor, it sounds a little bit different, but not too much. Minor 1, 5, 1. And you see how the B flat is made into a B natural because the 5 chord in minor needs that accidental to make it major. So in the natural minor, 5 is minor, but in order to get the solid dominant chord, which establishes the tonic, we need the raised leading tone of the raised 7. So you're going to have that 7th scale degree always raised. Okay, so now your steps. The very first thing you're going to do when you get a progression, you're going to think through the scale. You're going to ask yourself, what pitch is do, what pitch is sol, and what pitch is ti, because those are ones that you're going to be thinking about and you want to be keeping an ear out for and an eye out for. Okay, and in minor, you're going to ask yourself, what pitch is that 7th scale degree? So I make a note to myself, if I'm in C minor, make a note to yourself that if there's a B, it's going to be B natural. Okay, and you have to add that accidental in. So here's your steps. Step 1, notate the bass line. Step 2, determine the chord options for each pitch. Step 3, listen for quality of the chords. And step 4, determine the Roman numerals and the inversions. So really, when you're determining your chord options, you're actually doing step 4, and then your 4th step is to determine which Roman numeral and inversion you're actually going to use for your answer. So let's try a couple of examples. This first one's in A major. Here's where we start. So your first step is to notate the bass line. So let's actually do our pre-step. So do is A, sol is E, and what's T? T is always just a half step below do. So A is do, T is G sharp. So those are your 3 sort of important notes. You can also think, what's re? B, okay? But the ones to keep in mind are do and sol, A and E. And let's notate that bass line. Okay. Listen once more for that, and listen to these first couple pitches. Okay, so the cool thing about the system is that you've got that big leap at the beginning, right? But we know that we have a limited number of pitches that we can go to. We know we can go to do, re, mi, or sol. And the difference between, or ti. From do to ti or do to re is a step, so that's definitely not a step. Do to mi would have to go up, and if it was going to go down to mi, that'd be really unlikely, and that's really, really far. We're not going quite that far. So that is do to sol. Okay, it's a leap, and the only place we can really leap to is sol. And then it goes back to where it started, and then it goes up by step. Do, re, mi. So now what are our options? Do always is going to be 1 for the time being, especially in tonic expansion. Do is always 1. You're not going to have tonic expansion and have do be anything else other than 1, okay? There's what's called the alternative opening, or what I call the alternative opening, and we'll get to that later. But for now, and it sounds much different, okay? So you're not just getting used to what chords go in tonic expansion, you're getting used to the sound of tonic expansion. So do has to be 1, sol has to be 5, do has to be 1, re has 2 options, right? What are the 2 options for re? 5, 6, 4, or 7 diminished 6. And then mi has to be 1, 6. Okay, so re is our wild card. So listening for quality, we're going to listen for, is this chord major or is it diminished? Sorry, let me play that again. Here's your 1. It's also a good chance to double check your work. So if it's not a quality that you expect, then something's off. So if you have, oh, I know that it's a 1 and it sounds like this, then something's wrong. But major, 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 major. So this is the 5-6-4. Here we go. Okay, let's do another one, this time in minor. So we're in G minor. So first of all, what is do, sol, and T? Do is G. Sol is D. And T, half step below G is F sharp. So if you have an F sharp, if you have T in the bass, you want to add that sharp onto the F. Okay, so now you're going to listen for the bass line. Okay, listen once more. Okay, so what is that? Is it stepping or skipping? It's just stepping up and then back down. So it's going do, re, mi, re, do. Okay, so here is our wild card, right? The mi has to be 1-6. Do has to be 1. So we're asking ourselves, is this a 5-6-4? Is it major or is it diminished? And same question here. Okay, so listen. Okay, and the question isn't even, is it major or diminished, or it could be as simple as, is it bright or is it dark? Brighter, is it brighter or darker? This is one of the big things that you're going to have to distinguish over the course of the class, is the 5-6-4 versus the 7 diminished 6, and next week versus the 5-4-3. And it gets tricky in there, and I promise you will never fail a test because you can't tell the difference. Okay, this is one of the harder things to listen for in the class. So, is it dark or is it bright? I play it like that, it's easy to hear, but how does it feel? It feels kind of dark, right? 1-6, and here it's bright. Okay, so we have 1, 7 diminished 6. Okay, there's your dark chord. 1-6, 5-6-4, or passing 6-4 to a 1. All right, so that is it. I hope that helped a little bit. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Okay, bye.